hopping around. I'm sorry, what? He dips, he gets out of there, he's gone. He's like, it wasn't an Australian that carried out those attacks. Harry Potter with the invisibility cloak, he throws that thing on, I'm out of here, you can't see me, I'm gone. Unfortunately, you can't get as scummy as Albo Keeney, but that's quite close. Sexual orientation, gender identity, disability. Alright. Donnie. Maybe we can steal their voters. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show, Australia for Australians, and specifically, segment inside, the Australian Brief. If you follow the Instagram, you're going to know what we're going to be discussing. And if you don't, well, just watch and listen. Without further ado, I must, before we get into topics and certain things that has been going on in the government and other news, I must state these things clearly now. I am talking about policy. I'm not talking about harming anyone. This is political criticism that is coming out from this channel and not a call to violence. And as well, no one deserves to be attacked or threatened with the new laws. I must make this very clear. So, I also have these shirts that will be dropping in the following weeks. 100% cotton, love it or leave. Got the Australian flag right there, nice little print. So stay tuned on the Instagram, look out on the channel. I will be posting that as soon as it drops. Yeah. Now most of you may be familiar or not too familiar, that came out this week, the vote on the new federal hate speech laws. We're going to delve into that, what it means, give you some examples of how these things, what exactly is going to happen. Now, first off, it's supposedly about stopping violence and keeping people safe. That's bullshit, because let's delve into this quickly, because violence was already illegal, threats were already illegal, and terrorism was already illegal. So, what's changed? Unfortunately, it's now speech, beliefs, and association. You, I, anyone can now go to prison for quote-unquote promoting hatred. Okay, if the government itself decides something you said, quote unquote, promotes hatred, is toward a protected group, or a reasonable person might feel unsafe, that's a criminal offense, up to 5 years in prison. No one has to be harmed, no one has to be attacked, no one even has to complain. It's unfortunately about how your words are interpreted after the fact. Now, going a bit deeper into this, the definition of the protected groups is massive. It isn't just race anymore. It includes ethnicity, religion, nationality, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, and sometimes even political opinion. We're yet to find out with anyone who is currently making political opinions what might happen to them. So what used to be normal political criticism can now be reframed as criminal hate, depending on who's listening and who's in power, and more importantly, who's in power. Unfortunately, intent doesn't save you. Intent doesn't save you, impact does. So here's the key shift in all these things. They don't have to prove you ever wanted to hurt someone, you wanted violence, or that you encouraged attacks. They just say, a reasonable person could feel intimidated or unsafe. That's not criminal law as we knew it, that's emotional harm law. Okay? As we know now with the National Socialist movement in Australia, the government now can ban groups and criminalise association. Going deeper, the Home Affairs Minister can declare a group a hate organisation without a jury, no criminal conviction, and simply based on intelligence. Once that happens, being a member is a crime, supporting them is a crime, donating is a crime, promoting is a crime. You do not even need to commit violence. You don't even need to speak. Association alone equals prison. Delving deeper into this again, symbols and gestures can be crimes. Certain symbols, certain flags, certain gestures, certain salutes can as well be. Even without words, even without threats, context will not save you. Don't save me, won't save anyone else anymore. This is thought policing through symbolism as well. Now, not to go too far off track, but with the National Socialist movement, I'm familiar with certain people that were a part of it and whatnot. But the problem is walking around in all black and throwing up the salute and LARPing as Nazis was never going to work, if we be completely honest. That was not the right idea. Some of the ideas that they may have put out may have been good, but let's be honest, doing that, LARPing as Nazis, is not going to work, is never going to work, not in this time, not in this day and age at all. So overall, with these new hate speech laws, what does that mean for influencers and commentators? Well, if you're a speaker, a commentator, a preacher, a creator, if you're someone like myself, your punishment can be worse because your voice is considered influential. Translation, the more people that listen to you, the fewer opinions you're allowed to have. Okay, great. So what this means again for people like you and me and you guys watching, if you're a political commentator, you can criticize policies, you can criticize ideologies, you can criticize institutions, and you can criticize the government. But the moment your criticism is framed as, this group is a problem, these people are dangerous, they shouldn't exist here, you're no longer debating politics. You're exposed legally, not because you're violent, but because someone might feel unsafe under the new hate speech laws. I mean, it's just great, isn't it? Now, let's say, to give a real-world example, I make a video arguing mass immigration is harming Australia, or the government is ignoring voters, or cultural cohesion is breaking down. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't call for violence. I didn't tell anyone to attack anyone. Under the old system, that's just simply framed as, and was, political speech. Under the new laws, prosecutors can argue that it promotes hatred. They claim a reasonable person could feel unsafe. And now, there I am in court explaining myself. Same words, new crime. Now, unfortunately, these laws aren't about stopping violence. They're about controlling narrative boundaries. When the government decides what counts as hate, it also decides what counts as an acceptable opinion. And once speech becomes criminal, power, not truth, decides the rules. Now, many of you that have been watching this channel may know what's been going on over the past few years and even before that, Unfortunately, the country has been on a downward spiral. The vote was last year. Votes were counted. I myself was actually counting votes. It's a very strange and interesting thing to see. I can't say specifically too much on it, I must be careful. But we're a year in and things are just getting tremendously, extraordinarily worse. Nothing is improving in any kind of realm, unfortunately. And Liberal Andrew Hastie is a man that likes to lie. He'll tell you one thing and go back on his word. As he voted for the new hate speech laws, he voted yes for them. Now, unfortunately, you can't get as scummy as Al Burkini, but that's quite close. So, I believe the major downfall of the Liberals, it is what it is, It's a good thing. And the Liberals have been buried 6 feet underneath the ground. Now, during the vote that happened last week, some of you may know him, Liberal Senator Andrew Hastie is, quite frankly, lying scum. He went out on social media, raised money, said he would be pushing back against this whole vote. However, when push came to shove for the vote, he voted yes in favor of the new hate speech laws. Unfortunately, there seems to be a whole group of them. I mean, in Australia alone specifically, not even to get into America, I'd say honestly easy about 90% of these people are all lying to us and major big issues, but that's something that's quite obvious and I don't need to point out myself. Senator Babbitt has been quite good, been quite on a run of late, I might say. And us as Christians, I certainly stand with him. Again, I have no connection to any political party. I have no connection or support for any political party currently in the times that we are living in. With what's been going on happening in this country over the past few years, it's been quite demoralizing, certain groups. I mean, we go out on the roads nowadays. We're driving our car down the road. There's someone that's in the right lane, again, might or may not be from this country, taking up the full right lane, slowing everything down. We have more incident report vehicles out on the roads, clearing up crashes, We have more incident report vehicles out on the roads, clearing up crashes, stopping traffic, because someone from another country, a non-Western country, has had a crash and has stopped a whole line on the freeway. Now, it could be a quite simple and easy fix, We get the police back on the train. We get people who are coming into this country that aren't from a Western country onto the train. And if you're lucky, the second generation of your family will be able to apply for a license. Now, going back to certain things here. Now, I'm going to play a video here. It's not the highest quality, but once again, I'm not promoting hatred. I'm not pushing anything. I'm not saying any group or any specific individuals should be harmed or attacked. But I'm going to play this video and let you form your own opinions.
Those laws, though, didn't have many friends outside of Parliament, though. Those laws, though, didn't have many friends outside of Parliament, though, as well. Was it just poor policy?
Well, importantly, they had the support of the Executive Council of the Australian Jury, and I think when we're in the immediate aftermath of the Bondi massacre, that really mattered. In terms of the remaining pieces of legislation on the hate groups legislation, if I put it in these terms, the Executive Council of the Australian Jury are urging that these laws go ahead. The Executive Council of the Australian Jury are urging that these laws go ahead.
As in you won't support them, or you will support them?
No, I possibly will support the hate crime laws by all means. There shouldn't hate crimes in Australia.
And mandatory minimum sentences, mandatory jail time for those, you support that?
Yes, I do. Yes, there has to be, until we clean up our act.
Now, going back to the hate speech laws for a little bit, Liberal Senator Ann Ruston, I'm sure you've all heard of her, says the hate speech bill has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Unfortunately, she's lying by admission, but actually arguing that it was designed to target radical Islamic groups and neo-Nazi groups. Again, I do not agree LARPing around as Nazis in all black and saluting was ever going to work. But it's just quite a funny statement to make from Ann Ruston. It's certainly a strange thing to say and remark. A lot of these senators, when they go out and they're on TV, they're on the interview, they're on Day News, they're on Sky News, whatever it may be, they seem to catch themselves out a few times, or I guess we seem to catch them out a few times on what they have said. Seems to be quite a mysterious front that they're putting out and they're saying to us, and then one thing is said to the other, and the other hand is saying something else, and there's a cross-reference and a clash that seems to happen. Now, unfortunately as well, certain ideologies and behaviours being promoted in Australia are harmful to social cohesion. Some activist movements are pushing policies that are actively damaging this country. Back in the day when I used to work for someone, I felt like a minority myself, because unfortunately, especially in the jobs that I had worked in within the car industry, doing a bit of construction industry as well, there are people from other countries that come in and we understand they need a job and whatnot, but there is no assimilation that happens. There is no practice on the English that happens. There is no practice, nothing is put into practice here. And unfortunately, the great replacement theory is coming true. I mean, it's for cheaper labor. It's for cheaper labor. It's to push a certain other group out of the country. And these individuals and organisations advocating ideas that undermine the Australian values and democracy. Once again, that completely ties into assimilation. What's been going on over here every year seems to multiply. The numbers of immigration that are coming in aren't right. They do not seem right in any shape, way or form. The other issues that we're having here aren't right in any way, shape or form either. You know, I mean, I go into the shops now, you know, or wherever it may be. People are speaking another language. There's no part in the identity or culture anymore here. I mean, to give you a good example is, it's Australia Day tomorrow, right? Now, when I was a kid, even younger, when I was a kid, I would go into Woolies before Australia Day or whatnot, or sometimes my parents would get, you know, the flag, a few other bits and bobs, you know, for Australia Day celebration. Beg your pardon. I was in the shop yesterday. Not a single flag, not a single decoration. In Kmart and Target and Big W as well. Went all through there. I was trying to get some merch for Australia Day, you know. Not a single thing in any of these stores. Nothing. Not even an aisle. Now again, it may have just been the shopping centre I was at, but it's strange to see that Big W, Kmart, Target, Woolworths, Coles, this one shopping centre, 5 of these stores, I didn't see a single thing. We walked around, asked one of the staff member, who didn't have the best English. The undermining of Australian values and democracy from people that are immigrating has been disgusting. And unfortunately, our government can't uphold it or do anything about it. They could if they tried, but they don't want to. You notice with Anthony Albanese, when he's asked a tough question, or someone goes up to confront him, if you will, again with another question, the guy runs off scurrying. He dips, he gets out of there, he's gone. He's like Harry Potter with the invisibility cloak. He throws that thing on, I'm out of here, you can't see me, I'm gone. And it really just shows. Now, I myself am surprised with the vote that happened last year. I have friends, I have families, I have other members that are starting to open their minds to certain things, and you know, I have certain friends, family, you know, this kind of thing that have starting to see the problems that are occurring. I mean, unfortunately, we have Indian truck drivers now replacing our Australian truck drivers and causing major incidences on the road, driving down the wrong side, not dropping things off properly. It's disgusting. Sitting in the right lane, you know. Trucks aren't supposed to be in the right lane. You know, it's about the flow of traffic as well, but there's no need to get into too much of that. And can we talk about One Nation for a second? Because as we see, they're all polling higher than the Liberals now. They're going up in votes. A lot more young people are joining, etc., etc., etc. Because I myself woke up one day and this party got replaced by Skinwalker wearing an Australian flag as a cape. It was supposed to be the party that said what everyone else was scared to say. And now, unfortunately, they're sounding like every other career politician who just discovered polling data. Every election, it's the same thing. This time we're serious. This time we won't. This time we will stand firm. And since 2021, you can look at the old clips of Pauline and One Nation and see how far off they have diverted from what they once were and aligning themselves with what every other group seems to be saying. The problem with One Nation isn't the voters, it's the leadership, okay? The party says one thing, votes another way, and then pretends no one noticed. You can't call yourself nationalist while arguing with policies that clearly don't prioritise Australians. That's not nationalism. That's branding. At this point, One Nation is like is like that mate who says he's about loyalty, but somehow keeps ending up on everyone else's side of the argument. Hopping around, okay. Then they talk tough in press releases, then fold like a lawn chair when it actually matters. If principles were currency, this party would be permanently overdrawn. Now, before I even delve any deeper into other things, I can't say certain things from these two clips. The first is a letter from Pauline Hanson. The first thing is a letter from Pauline Hanson on June 22nd, 2025, to the Prime Minister after the Iranian nuclear attack on their enrichment facilities that USA conducted. The letter reads, "Dear Prime Minister, the world is a safer place without nuclear weapons in the hands of the Islamic Republic of Iran, a radical Islamic dictatorship." Pardon me. Safety of Australians should remain paramount, and this is why One Nation supports the strike conducted by the United States to destroy Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. I am conscious of Iran's repeated threat to bring death to Israel and death to the United States. Sure, it's not like there's a giant galactic ocean in between Iran and America, but as a defense ally to the United States, Australia now must remain hyper-vigilant to ensure reprisal attacks do not occur here in our own country. And it's a bit late for that, but anyway. Threats by Iran's foreign minister that strikes would be very, very dangerous for everybody. Again, no one wants to target us except for the replacement theory. Your government has remained weak in its response to terrorism attacks against Israel, an intelligence, security and defense partner of Australia. Let's not get into Palantir today. I'm especially fearful that your government's position continues to be inadequate against the danger of radical Islam in Australia, which puts the lives of our citizens at a greater risk as our terrorism threat remains probable. Now, what she just said there, again, I'm going to finish this in a moment, but let's just pause there for a moment. The position continues to be inadequate against the danger of radical Islam in Australia. Seems to be, especially with these new hate speech laws. Again, this was a letter in the past in 2025 before it happened. But it seems to be that people have already forgotten the Bondi attack that happened. And what does this new hate speech law protect? What is one of those groups in between? What have senators said on Sky TV? Muslims will not feel safe until Islamophobia is eradicated. Interesting point. Interesting point to say. Again, because it wasn't a white man. It wasn't an Australian that carried out those attacks. Back to the letter. Since the Iranian regime backed Hamas terror attack on Israel on October 7th, again, we all know that Israel already knew that attack was coming, and the war with Iran has been going on long before October 7th. Australia has faced anti-Semitic protests at the Sydney Opera House, our government-funded universities, parliamentary offices, and our suburbs. This must not be tolerated following the US strikes, and I request that you work with the state and territory governments to prevent these protests from recommencing. Now, interesting point that she pointed out there, the anti-Semitism protests. Very interesting point. Now, one might take from this letter that Pauline herself, and the previous clip that I showed you that Pauline stated to do with anti-Semitism and hate speech back in 2025. From both of these things, you might say maybe a certain group, a certain amount of people knew what was coming with these new laws that have now just been passed. And unfortunately, it feels like quite a stab in the back from Pauline because, again, there are issues that we can come to terms with and agree, but overall, she doesn't want to put this country first, Anglo-Australians first, either. Again, One Nation seeks to confirm from you and your government that you will prosecute radical Islam preachers who inspire terrorism and hatred. I'm sorry, what? Because who do these hate speech laws now protect as well? What happened on Bondi? What kind of person was that done by? These are kind of questions that we should all be asking, okay? As we seek your reassurance, the government will not offer additional visas to Iranians seeking resettlement in Australia. I think we've got larger issues than Iranians seeking resettlement in Australia, Pauline. Now, as you can see from the bottom of that letter that I posted, the Australian Jewish Association had posted that. Now, not to get into things too much again, I'm not promoting hatred, I'm not promoting anyone to be attacked, I'm not promoting things, this is just political criticism from my end. I have no hate for anyone, I wish for no one to be harmed, I am a Christian, okay? I suggest all of you that are watching this to take a slight delve into the Australian Jewish Association. You might find some certainly interesting things. On another video, we might go into that, but I must be very careful with what I now say. Again, another thing to do with One Nation. James Hall, which is a journalist from the Brisbane Times, came out with an article the other day. He wrote, One Nation wants to distance itself from the far-right brand to attract broader appeal and woo disenfranchised conservative voters fed up with the turmoil in the Liberal and National parties. So what does this mean? Let's break down the statement. Essentially, to attract broader appeal, they're trying to sound more normal, softer, and less controversial, so more people feel comfortable voting for them. The woo and disenfranchised conservative voters, they're chasing people who are politically homeless, conservatives who feel betrayed and ignored. Again, in that statement, fed up with the turmoil in the Liberal and National parties. Translation. The Libs and Nats are a mess, so One Nation sees an opportunity to poach their voters. So basically, One Nation looked around and saw the Liberals lighting themselves on fire and said, all right, Tony, if we stop sounding insane for 5 minutes, maybe we can steal their voters. And look what's happened. Again, it's just the facts. It's purely obvious. Anyone with half a brain can see it. These are some of the things that have been happening in our country this week. Quite a few extremes, other messes, certain biases, one saying another, one saying the other thing, or the same person is saying the exact one thing and switching up and changing. Thank you everyone for watching. If you did enjoy it, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, comment below what you thought about the show. Follow the Instagram, the handle is Australians4, the number 4, Australians with a double S, and be on the lookout for the Love It or Leave shirts that will be coming out soon enough. Again, I will be back next week, going through some more news, certain things, might touch on some broader subjects. As we know, the US will be going back to Iran for another war soon enough. Mark my bets. Thank you.